And good morning. Welcome to the Hot Seat. I'm Scott Mitchell. This is Oklahoma's Labor Commissioner Leslie Osborn. Good to see you,
Hello.
Commissioner.
Good to see you.
For those of you who remember, she was a panelist on Your Vote Counts for many years, and those were some good old days.
Thoroughly enjoyed it with Richard Morissette and then Jason Dunnington.
That's exactly right. Henny Penny, the sky is falling. You like that one, Richard? Okay, let's start with, we tell people, watch these interims. There's a lot of things that happen in interims. The media doesn't focus on them as much as they do during the session. You've had one that's I'm interested in, which it deals with labor laws, specifically child labor. And I'm wondering, how did that come about and why?
So we had a conversation with Representative Judd Strom from the Bartlesville area and had seen that in the last year, a lot of states were trying to weaken their child labor laws to solve their workforce problems and to actually encourage kids 14 to 17 to be working more hours, and they had to go against federal law to do that. And our concern is that that's not the best pathway for our kids. They're already able to work quite a few hours. When they're 16 and 17, no limits. It's federal law since 1938. But to try to figure out to solve our problems on the back of children, because it encourages high school dropouts, it encourages them then to feel like they're making a contribution to their family. But then they're doomed to a life of low wages. And we would prefer to see them go through the career tech system or something where they're doing on-the-site work, like apprenticeships and those kind of things, still contributing to the family, but there's no reason to loosen those child labor laws.
Okay, so your first statement, let me unpack a couple of things there. Number one, states are looking at this for their workforce problems. What are the workforce problems?
So we don't have enough warm bodies to fill the jobs.
Okay.
And it's real. And in Oklahoma, you know, we're hovering at very low unemployment, so we just don't have enough people. Our contention is there's multiple pools of people not being utilized besides children to fill that. Women of childbearing years. Over half of our counties are child care deserts. They have one slot for every 10 that are needed. So if you have children, a lot of times you are not able to work. Former felons. 1 out of 9 adults in Oklahoma has a felony conviction in their past. If you're a business that doesn't hire second chance, you've just lost 10% of your applicant pool. Immigrants that have been here for decades, have children in our school system that don't have the proper ID because of immigration to go get into a plumbing program or an electrician's program. Those are the pools of people we should be utilizing instead of trying to solve this problem on the back of children.
Okay, so let me follow up on that one by asking this. People were looking at, states looking at children. Why is there a workforce problem? I've not ever really heard a reason as to post-COVID. Why?
Well, I think it's a couple of things. For instance, in Oklahoma, let's look at the child care problem, which is a huge issue. Most of the people in the rural counties that had child care, it was with the grandmother at the Methodist church that watched her 2 grandkids and 3 others. During COVID, we had the second highest death rate in the nation, particularly in elderly. And so we lost a lot of those elderly citizens that did that. In the cities, you know, the bigger cities, you see the chains, kinder care, you know, where big churches will have after school. But in our 75 rural counties, that was not the case. Secondly, they were scared during COVID, so they quit doing what they were doing because children are little petri dishes and they were afraid. Those have never really opened back up. And so we're still seeing the results of that pandemic in things like that, which affects childcare, which affects not having enough warm bodies to fill the jobs.
Okay, and would that be specifically impacting women more than men?
Yes, and this is an interesting study. The Federal Bureau of Labor Statistics said that in the blue states, we tend to see that be shared more with men and women, and it affects them pretty much the same. In red states, that primarily falls more in the Bible Belt on the young mothers, so it's almost fully on women in a state like Oklahoma.
Okay, so I recall during the first year of the Biden administration, there was a lot of legislation proposed, a lot of money proposed for the child care deserts. That did not make it into, as my understanding, the final federal bill, the amount of money anyway. So Oklahoma, what needs to be done in Oklahoma?
So Suzanne Schreiber is a sharp young representative that's come in the Tulsa area. She ran several bills last year that did not get through. One was one that would have provided a tax credit to businesses that would open on-site childcare. For businesses that do that, their turnover rates go down through the basement because women feel valued. They might not make quite as much as they would somewhere else, but their child is right there if something happens, and it tends to keep them there. You don't have the turnover and the inefficiency agencies. Those are the kind of things we need to look at. Hopefully the federal government will reinstate some of the child tax credits for people of lower socioeconomic means. But with supply and demand and such shortage, we're really pricing ourselves out of that. So we have to do different creative measures. I have had several conversations with A.J. Griffin at the Potts Family Foundation and Roger Thompson, the Senate Appropriations Chair, about perhaps a pool of money that smaller communities could band together as the businesses, the chambers, and all have a little skin in the game on opening these facilities, but something, a corpus to get them off the ground. So we're looking at potentials like that for this legislative session.
All right, so let's circle back to the kids. This legislation, this interim that you were at this week, other states looking at children to get into these gaps in workforce. Is that possible that even if that was allowed, it would solve the problem?
It wouldn't solve the problem. And here's the second thing. It breaks the supremacy clause. So anytime a state law tries to preempt federal law, if someone brings a lawsuit, eventually there'll be a moratorium and it'll be overturned. These laws are going to be overturned at some point because they're trying to supersede federal law that's been established since 1938. And hear me that kids are still working. It's not that we're not allowing them to work and to gain responsibility and be helpful to their families. At 14 and 15, we just want to make sure you're not working more than 2 or 3 hours on a school night. You know, during the summer, it's 40 hours a week. 16 and 17-year-olds, it's unlimited. So if we got away with those minimum standards, kids are not going to have time to go to school. We already have one of the highest dropout rates in the nation. We're a high poverty, low education state. Why in the world would we do anything to make it worse for the next generation? Because then they're doomed to a life of low wages. I think most of us in public service would like to think we're leaving the world a little better for the next generation.
How bad a problem is it in Oklahoma?
It is pretty serious. Now, I will say this, growing up agriculturally, agriculture family farms are exempt because a lot of times you'll hear, you know, the kids, my kids were out hauling hay and doing things like that. There are exemptions for agriculture. At the study, we had Michael Kelsey with the Cattlemen's Association. They're happy with the way the laws are, but they also understand that a kid may not need to go work in a manufacturing facility. And that's the other thing that child labor laws do, is they exempt you working around really dangerous things. And right now, the last 3 years, the Federal Department of Labor has had a 60% increase of finding children under 17 working in dangerous situations.
Okay, let me take you out into a little deep water here. Michelin is leaving Ardmore. Happened really suddenly. We've seen the Halo project being turned down. I have a feeling maybe the Biden administration might have thought about not giving that to Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana had they known Mike Johnson was going to be the speaker. But we're seeing a trend all of a sudden that's not good. Your thoughts as a statewide elected official, what the problem might be and where we need to go?
So my personal belief is, and from the data I've seen from the years in the House of Representatives before this, is that we are not keeping up with the standard of living that external large corporations want their employees to have. So we have lost Tesla as a potential. We lost Panasonic. We lost Volkswagen. We're losing companies like Michelin. When you ask them, they realize we're already an extremely low tax state. We usually hover in the bottom 5 of states for overall tax collections. So we're doing the business things necessary to have them, but we're not giving them the amenities. So if you're going to move your people here, you want to know that there is a stellar public education system for their children, that we have the arts, that we have things to go do, that we have good rural medical care access, that we have enough mental health care beds. We aren't doing that. We're sitting with over $2 billion in the rainy day fund, but we're not funding the things that change our trajectory. And these big businesses don't want to move their people somewhere that they feel that they will not thrive in. And that's why we've got to start investing in our people. And I say it a lot. Oklahoma City understands that. The MAPS projects put this city on the radar for everyone.
How about Tulsa? Does Tulsa understand?
Tulsa is close behind us, and the Kaiser Foundation and some of their big benefactors have really helped in that as well. But when you get outside of that, we don't invest in ourselves. If we could ever get the mindset at the Capitol of what Oklahoma City did with MAPS, investing in the trajectories that change your future, then when we build it, they will come. It works. It's a proven template, but we are reluctant to do it, and we starve out our services and it hurts us.
A final question would be, when you were in the legislature, you were in leadership, A and B chair for a long time. Do you think that executive branch, legislative branch understand the concerns you're talking about that you think big companies are concerned about Oklahoma?
I think that some of them do. I think they do. But I think that they get a lot of pressure. Right now, we live in a time where people want that 30-minute snapshot on Sean Hannity's show. If they run a drag show bill, they're going to get the attention. It's going to appeal to their loudest, squeakiest constituents. But at the end of the day, the average citizen, when you ask, wants less potholes. And they want better infrastructure. And they want to make sure that if Uncle Billy needs a mental health care bed, he doesn't have to live on their couch. That's the kind of thing we have to get past the sexy mindset of getting a slot on a Newsmax show and doing the work that really matters. And right now, we're having a difficult time doing that in Oklahoma.
All right. What's next in terms of this interim? Will we see legislation in 2024?
We were trying to be proactive. Our belief is that there are several groups out pushing this legislation to fix workforce problems with children across the nation. Like I said, it was enacted in 2 states last year, in a watered-down version in several others. By being proactive and getting the information out on alternative pathways, the career tech system, apprenticeships, our hope is that when those bills are filed, we can go have a consortium of people that have heard about this, and they'll go to those chairmen of the business committees and say, we'd prefer you didn't hear that. There's a better pathway to fix our workforce problems. Commissioner Leslie Osborn, Labor Commissioner of Oklahoma. It's always good to see you.
Thank you.
Same
You're an
here.
alum here, and you can come back anytime.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for watching Hot Seat. See this again at news9.com and news6.com/YourVoteCounts. Follow me on socials at Mitchell Talks.